Hey viewers, and this week we're going to be doing the code for your portfolio. We're going to be doing HTML and CSS. My name is Roy, I'm a web designer. If you do find the content useful, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get into the video. And this is not sponsored by Camelback. Okay viewers, so let's have a quick recap of what we did recently. So last week we did a very simple card, and then we turned it into a very simple home page. And here we have the hero section, and we're just going to have a gallery of portfolio images, and we got it responsive, and again we did a frame for mobile. I just wanted to outline the problem of the whole design to code process. So with any company, the problem going from design to code is the delay, and delay is time, and time is money. And what you have is a very simple overview of the process. So you have your design file, Figma, Sketch, Adobe XD for example, and you then want to get to the end, which is code. So you got web, iOS, Android. There's the bit in the middle, right? So the bit in the middle, how do you go from design to code? And there's so many ways of doing it. So there's plugins and there's tokens, design tokens, which is absolutely insane. That will be a future video. I'm very excited for design tokens, which is a bit more complicated, but what we're going to do in today's video, we're going to do the manual process. And because we're doing a very simple site, it's actually not too hard. Hopefully I'll prove that to you coming up. So another thing that I'm going to say is we are going to be designing some more pages. So pages like case studies. So when you click on one of the images, you're going to then have a new page, and that is going to be a case study. So this is where you're going to talk about the project. So one thing that I've talked about a lot on previous videos is the lean startup canvas, and that will give you stuff to talk about: the why, the how, the problem, the solution, the target audience, which is very, very, very important. So again, it depends on the stage of your career. So if you're a designer that's purely focusing on visual, grid, typography, the basics, if you're entry-level designer, then yes, we've done a lot of visuals. The next step is thinking about product strategy and thinking. So that is probably the mid-level designer. So again, yeah, the lean startup canvas is good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do some prep, and then we're going to go straight into the to-dos. Okay, so what we have to do before we get in is prep, download VS Code. So if you haven't done this before, you just need to go to code.visualstudio.com, download this. It's free on the Mac or Windows. Tailwind, I've just got this up because we can reference some of their CSS classes. This is a CSS framework, and you can use your own framework that you like Bootstrap, for example. And so once you have this, just as an example, another prep to do is to get your images in a folder on the desktop. So there's a folder here that you can't see, but I called it portfolio. So in that folder, I've got 6 images, and they're labeled nicely. I'll create a new folder, and we'll just call that images. So we're just going to drag these in. Okay, so you have a folder on the desktop and another folder called images. So let's go back into Figma. And so once you've got VS Code, you need to get a live preview extension. So let's quickly get up VS Code. So if I click on that, now what you see might be different than what I have. So I don't know why it comes up with this untitled. So here you can open the folder, open recent, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to drag the folder from the desktop into the screen here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to line this up nicely with the screen, and okay, that should be good enough. So the extension that you want to get is if you go to the top menu and you go to view and then extensions, in here you need to search for live server, and it's this one here, and you hit the install button here and you're going to see the magic of that in a minute. Okay, so if we get out of that, and how do we get out of this menu here? Command Shift E. Okay, and so once you're out of that, we're just going to quickly go back to Figma. Okay, so we've done our prep, we downloaded the VS Code. Now we're going to get into the to-dos. Bloody, that's just a lot of so anyway, we are going to name the layers, close the code. We're going to move our views into a new page. So before we do that, let's get the Pomo timer up. If you have this installed, great. If you don't, follow along. So I'm just going to get Pomo timer. I've set it to 20 minutes. Okay, so we might have to split this video. I'm going to hit play and away we go. Okay, move out views into a new page. So we got to do. So I'm just going to call this base. And when I mean views, this is component, this is component. So actually we got a components page, even though this is tiny, right? This is a tiny design, but it's good to get organized because you can see how you start building things. And then you got views or pages. And then you got build or prototype. So you got your base, and then you got your components, and then you got your views. So let me just get these two views and cut. Oop, did I do that right? No. Select the whole thing, cut, go to views. Okay, so this is basically the process. You got the base, you got some components, and then you got the view or the page, and then we're going to build. Okay, so it's quite simple, nicely organized. And then the next thing to do is so we've done move out views, very simple. Name the layers close to code. Okay, so if we go back to views, so as an example, if I click on this, this is just amazing with Figma. So frame. Okay, so frame, I'm going to label this home because this is going to be the home page. Now you can name these layers what you like, right? I'm using the reason of using HTML tags to name these layers. So for example, this could be the body tag. Okay, so if you're not familiar with code, you'll see in a minute when we build it. We're going to reference this. So you got the body tag, you've got a div which is 2 images inside, and then this one here is going to be a div, or it could be a header tag. Okay, so let's use the header tag, and then in the header tag we've got a bunch of elements, and what these elements are, you got the H1, the heading 1, you got a paragraph, and you have a link. So we just say A. Okay, so it's the A tag, H1, P tag, link tag, and then this one is going to be a div. Okay, because it's going to wrap these 3 elements. So really this is basically the HTML tags, and you have a div and you got 2 images. Now these are labeled cards. We can go back to components just to make it more real. We can just label these to image, and what would then happen is that would then update on all the others, because this is the master component, which is pretty sweet. If I go back to views, you can see here it's updated to image. So this is very close to what we're going to build. So we very quickly named our layers, and this one here is actually a class name that we're going to use, which is what Tailwind CSS uses. Okay, we go back to build. So we've moved out the layers into a new page. We've named the layers close to code. Now we're going to go into the code. I hope you're ready for this. So we're going to be going back and forth with the base, okay, because we're going to be doing some variables. So if we go into VS Code and we create a new file, and this is going to be index.html. This is the very first page you create in a website, and we're going to then do shift and 1 or exclamation mark, and you can see here this is coming up with all the code that we want to use. We then hit enter. So that has just given us some boilerplate code that we need, and the document, I'm just going to quickly label this in the title to portfolio. Okay, so now you can see we're in the body tag, right? So if we go back to views, you can see we said body tag and home, even though we're not saying home on there yet. We go back to code. So in here, we're then going to create some CSS variables. Okay, so now you can create a separate link for that. So we can do that. So we go here and we do open bracket, link. Let's see if I remember this. Probably not. Or link, and then let the emit come up, which is a very useful tool. It comes installed, and then you go to CSS, and then here we're just going to say CSS/style. So here we're going to create a new folder again, CSS, and in there we create a new file called style.css. So in this one, what we're going to do is we're just going to reset some things that the browser's put in. Okay, so a bit like Figma, when you do auto layout, it defaults it with some padding, some spacing. We want to reset some things in the browser, so we have to use the star tag, which targets every single tag in the browser, HTML. We're going to say the margin, we want it to be 0, we want the padding to be 0, and we want the box sizing, which is another crazy thing. We want it to also be sized to the border box. This is going to make things consistent with spacing, and we won't get too deep into that stuff. So we got our very basic, very basic default resets, and then the next thing to do is we're going to then bring in some variables. Okay, so to do that we do colon and then root, and then the variable names, when I say variables, these are going to hold these values, which you'll see in a minute. So let's start with the text. So fs base, I'm just going to be lazy and copy this. So this is font size 16, 24 pixels. Go back and we do hyphen hyphen like this, and then colon, and that is 16 pixels. But what we're going to do is, just to remind myself, if I do // this is a comment, we are going to convert pixel to rem. And the reason why you want to use rems for the web is because some users change their settings to increase the size of the font, for example. So it's good that we use rem units because it will adapt to the user's settings. With pixels, it's going to be set in that size. So anyway, we've quickly done our fs base. We're now going to do our other very simple one. So fs large, go back into the code, and again, I can't remember what fs large was. So again, this is a very manual process, right? So 24 pixels. Next one is fs extra large. So we go back, we go fs extra large, and I have a feeling that was something 2440. Okay, we only got 3, great. So that was actually 24, and this one is 40 pixels. Okay, so we've got a very simple variables, and the next thing to do is we are gonna do our spacing system. Okay, so we got 5, and we haven't really named these, but I'm going to say spacing. Okay, so we go back into the code, we're going to say spacing, and spacing base, I know it's going to be 16 pixels. We're going to go backwards, so spacing small, 8 pixels. Let's just remind myself again what we used. Okay, so, and then we're going up. Then we got spacing, did I say medium or large? Let's have a look. You see, this is very manual. I didn't say anything, so I can decide. So go back, We then say spacing medium, 24 pixels, spacing large, say 32 pixels, and then we should probably have 40. Okay, we're going right up to 160. Okay, so that is a pretty big jump, and the reason why is because of the sections. So spacing, I'm just going to call this sections, and this is probably bad naming, 160 pixels. Okay, just to see that I got these values right. Okay, great. And then we're going to do our 3 colors. Okay, so again, we got gray 9. Okay, so I can't actually see these values. Oh, I can, yes, of course I can. So I'm just going to copy, I'm just going to go, actually, I'll go here, copy this one, go back to the code. We're going to then say hyphen gray 9, as I called it there. Oop, we don't actually want to copy that. We want to copy the color right in the properties. So will it actually say hash? No, it won't. So we put hash in, colon, gray. Oop, let me delete that. Go back. Let's use the naming of this one. So 600, back to code. Oh, I said 600. Okay, let's use that. 900, 600. And that one is this one. And the last one is going to be gray 100, and that is the very light background color. And quite a lot of these frameworks like Material, Tailwind, they have a lovely, a really big palette. But we're not going to use all of those. We're just going to use a few that we need. Let me go back, and then we do that. Okay, so we got our text space values, our spacing, our colors, and we're not actually going to do something for the grid because that's going to be different. Okay, so we go back and we got our very simple values. We just hit save. Okay, so let's go back into HTML now. Let me just make sure I'm following along just to remind myself. Okay, variables. Okay, we've done that. Now let's get into the HTML. Wow, it is nearly 20 minutes already. Gosh. So we'll see how this goes, right? Let's get back into the code. This is probably going way over time. Let's go HTML. And the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to create the header tag, okay, as we referenced on the Figma. So let's go back into views. You can see we got, well, the way that Figma does it, they do it backwards. So we got header, div, and then we got the 3 elements. So let's do that. And we got a div, and we got the H1. Let's just say heading 1. And we got a paragraph, and we just say text for now. And then we got a tag, and it's called a link, and we got this lovely arrow. Okay, and that is that. And then the next thing we got is a div, which is going to hold a bunch of images. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually we can do you can let it load up, and then you hit enter. Oh no, I selected the wrong one. So image, we go down to image, and the source we're going to type images / it'll come up. So here we're just going to select all the different ones. So I'm just going to start from the bottom, and we're just going to copy 6 times, and then we're just going to delete those. We're just going to select all the other ones. Okay, landing page crypto, dating sections, and then dating app. Okay, so we've done all of those, and one thing that we haven't done is the footer, okay, which is the copyright area. So I'm just going to create a footer tag, And then in there, we need to create another div, and we need to create a p tag, which is going to be copyright 2021, and then another div, which is going to hold 3 links. So we just type A, and we go down to link. Ooh, we just say Twitter. Just copy that twice. We say Instagram, and then we say Dribble or YouTube. I can't remember which one I chose. And save. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit the live. So you can go down here, hit go live, and you can see straight away that this is the bare bones page. Okay, so you got your 6 images, and congrats, you got heading, text, link. It's actually not that hard, right? Now, the next thing we do, we go back, and we are going to go back into here. And so we got H1PA, and we got 6 images. Okay, great. So we've got to do some other default styling. So all images, we need them to be a max width of 100% and a height of auto. If we go back, you can see that it's going to be nice and fluid. And what we want to do there is we want to go back to there. We want this to be in a grid layout, and it's actually quite simple, but we're going to go to class, and we're going to have a name of grid. We're going to say grid calls 2 and a gap of 1, and we're going to create these classes. So we go back to style, we can say grid, display, and then grid. Grid hyphen calls 2, and that's going to be template, if I remember this, template columns 1 frame 1 frame. Okay, so that's just basically 2 columns, and then the gap of 1, we are actually going to reference our spacing. So gap is going to be our base. So the way to reference variables, you do var, and then I'll just copy the base here, and then colon, semicolon, save. Let's go back into, and straight away it's laid it out in a grid style gallery. And how nice is that? Okay, very quick and simple. The only thing that let me just check I did that right. Grid gap. Okay, gap 1. Did I do that correctly? Gap 1. Yeah. So I've probably done this one wrong. So gap. Is it grid gap? Let's see if it's grid gap. No, it's not grid gap. Grid calls 2, spacing base. Maybe I referenced something wrong. I can't remember what gap was now. Let's see if we try this way. Oh, okay. Grid gap. Gap 1. Go back. There is no gap. Gap as in here. Let's see why. Gap 1. Gap 1. Yeah, I'm sure I wrote that correctly. And we go back to style. Wow, we're doing so well. And then this tiny detail, which for some reason won't work. So what to do is we'll go back to Tailwind, and we reference grid gap. Do they have a grid gap? No, they don't. They have just gap. So gap 1 is gap of that. So it's just gap. Okay. So if I just say 16 pixels, for example, go back into Brave. The variable didn't work. Why didn't the variables work? Root. Did I do my variables wrong? So var, and this is probably going to go into an hour-long video. Wowzers. And we go to space in base colon. Wow, I'm not sure why the variables are not working. And I have, yeah, variables are not working. Let's see why. Let's see what this issue is. Is there an issue? Doesn't like something? The at rule or selector expected. It doesn't like this comment for some reason. Maybe it's the way, it's probably the way I've written the comment. Sorry. So, this should probably work now, I hope. Yes, it works, okay. That comment is probably the way I've done it. I think a comment is if you do comment and then command // that's the proper way to do a comment. And that reminded me, we have to convert these to pixels, rems. The way to do that is very simple. You just need to divide that by 16. So this is where things do take time, right? And this is not sponsored by Camelback. Oh, and the timer has gone. Wow. So it shows that this does take a bit of time, but you can see where we are. We actually built the gallery and we got our simple bare bones. So now it's going into the details. Let's see how much overtime we go into. So if I go back and if I convert these, so I'm just doing this very, very raw. We can go to that site where you find all the values. I'm just showing 16 divided by 16 is 1. Okay. And then 24 divided by 16 is 1.5. And it's just good to know these things yourself. 40 divided by 16 is 2.5 rem. So I know that that is 1 rem. Okay, and let's do 8. So 8 divided by 16 is 0.5. 24, my memory's pretty bad, so 24 divided by 16 is 1.5 rem. 32 divided by 16 is 2 rem. And then the last one is 160, which is 10 rem, right? Let's see if my maths, I'm pretty sure. 10 rem, okay. 10 rems. So we've done our converting pixels to rems, and we got our very simple, very simple design. Oops, there we go. We need to have some padding on the edges. So we go back. And the way we're going to do that is a bit different. We're going to say .px, which is padding on the left and the right. And it's going to be padding left, and we're going to reference spacing base. We can say padding right. Oop, selected the wrong one. Padding right, spacing base. Ooh, that's nice. But we didn't say the value, so we're going to just say px, and we're going to say base. So if we go up, we want to do the same thing here, px base, go back into browser. You can see that padding is on the left and the right. Great. So if we go back, we also want the padding on here, so class, and we're going to say padding y, so top and bottom, and it's going to be section. We're also going to want that on the footer as well. So let's create that class, so .py section, and then padding, padding top is going to use spacing sections, padding bottom is going to use spacing sections. We go back. Now you can see that nice spacing in there. And then what we got to do is we got to bring in another class, which is MX Auto, and that is going to center that hero section. So auto, this is the magic that does it for you. And we're also going to have a max width of, it could be max width, and I think Tailwind use pros. So max width of, let's say, 65 characters. So this is the measure. So if we go back into HTML, we go here, we say class max or MX auto max width pros. Save that, and straight away here we got it centered, okay, which is great. And what we're going to do next is we're just going to copy some of the content. So we just go in here, we just cut it so it's going to be more close to what we've done, and we go here, copy that whole paragraph, and you're probably not going to say that much in the paragraph, but let's see how this looks. Okay, great. The next thing we need to do is some margin spacing. That was an extra 5-minute break there. And let me just close that. So we're well into 30 minutes. So next thing to do is some spacing below these tags. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say class margin bottom, and I believe it's going to be large. Here we're going to say large as well. We go back to style, margin bottom large to rem. Okay, are we going to use that much? Well, let's see. Let's see. So margin bottom large, and it's going to be margin bottom, and it's going to be large. Let's see. Go back. Nice. Okay, and I think that might be too large, because if I remember correctly, it's probably only 24 pixels. You can see here. And if I go back, we probably need one for medium. So medium, medium, save that, go back, we just say medium and medium. Okay, that's looking better. And then what we got to do is let's put in some font sizes. Okay, so for example, we got the H1, and that is going to be a font size of extra large. We got the P, which is also going to be pretty big. But what we're going to do differently is we're going to say that it's going to be FS large, and we're going to say font size, and it's going to be FS large. Okay, great. So there's probably little things we haven't done, which is line height, okay? But we're probably going to tackle this in the next video. But let's go back into this. We go back to HTML. We then say H1, and this one we want FS large. So again, we go back. You can see here, we straight away got a nice big heading, and we got the text. And we need to do the same for this one. We actually need to wrap this in a P tag. And we save that. So now that should be nice and big, which is not, because we need to also put FS large class on that. So you go to class, you go to FS large, you go back. Okay, great. So we've practically got the same layout, right? Now it's just the little tiny details, and the tiny details is getting the right font and the colors. So one thing I forgot to point out is let's go to Google Fonts, and we go here, and we're going to look for Inter, and you go here, and the two weights we want is regular and semi-bold, and all you have to do is just copy this, which is in the link, and we go back, we go into here, in the heading tag, we just paste that, we go to style, and we want to say body, and we want to say font family, apostrophe enter, and then we go back into our portfolio. You can see we straight away have the font. Okay, great. And what we're going to do is introduce some line height values. Okay, so well, actually, yeah, let's do the line height. So line height, what was the line height? So I haven't put these in variables, but we can go back to base. Okay, so for large it's 32, but the H1 is actually pretty big, so 48 line height. Okay, so let's just say 48 pixels. Again, we're not going to calculate it for time's sake. We go back, and then for large, what was the line height for large? Line height for large is 32. And then I'm going to say for p tags, we're going to say a line height of 24 and font size of variable. Oh, actually, let's try that. So no, variable, and we want fs base colon. Go back. Oop. Okay. So we just did some very simple line heights, and now when you go responsive, we don't want that to be as big, and we want these to stack as well. Okay, and there's a very simple way of doing it, and it's to do with the grid. So just again, to reference Tailwind, you can search for breakpoints, and in here you can see they got the different breakpoints. And what we're going to do, we're just going to copy this code here, media. We're going to go here, I'm going to paste that, we're going to delete that code, and we are going to say from 768 breakpoint, we then want it to be a grid call of 2, but we want it to default as a 1 column. So if we go back, you can see here that if I go down, it's now stacking. Okay, at 768 pixels width. Nice. So we haven't referenced any colors, but before we do that, let's do our font sizes. So these are going to be, when they get to a large screen, they are, this gets a bit messy. We're going to get rid of the line heights. They are going to be those sizes. But when we get to a smaller screen, we actually want them to be smaller. So this one is going to be large. And just to reference again, this one is going to be base. And then if we go back, we can see here that all the fonts have gone down. But you can see the line height is not that great. So we actually probably need to keep those line heights on these ones here. So let me just make sure I'm doing this right. So FS2 or FS large, we need line height there, and then the H1, we need the line height as well. So what that means is we need to bring these line heights down. So I would say 32 and then 24. So again, if we go back, you can see here, it has got that nice size reduction. And you can see it's right to the edge. So again, we can reuse our px base class. So I'll go in here and then here, px base, save that. You can see now we got the spacing. Okay, we can actually play with the width of this. So if you feel that's too narrow, we can increase the characters per line. So let's say 72, because I know that's also recommended. Okay, I think that's a bit better. And the next thing to do is some colors. So we got all those colors there. And at the moment, I'm just randomly placing these classes. So gray, so gray 900 is going to be color, gray 900. I'm just going to copy that 3 times. I'm going to say gray 6 is going to be gray 6, gray 1, and gray 1. Okay, now we also need to do another one for this, which is going to be BG gray 100, and background color. Okay, so let's go back into our HTML. We want the header to have a BG gray of 100, and we want the H1, actually we want this to be the lighter gray, so gray 600, and let's just see if that worked. So yeah, you got the lighter gray, you got that nice light gray background. We actually want a padding below there, so what we can do is we can say on the header we want margin bottom base, and I don't think we've created that, so we just copy that class, we then say margin bottom base, and we say spacing base. Go back to browser. You can see now we got that nice margin bottom. So yeah, it's getting there. Now by default, we go back to the body tag, we actually want the color to be gray 900. We don't want it to be the solid black. So you go VAR, and we go gray 900. And then we go back again. So this is a lot of going back and forth, but if you've got 2 screens, it's going to be a lot quicker for you to just have a look. But I'm on a laptop, so I'm going back and forth. So again, we've created a heading, paragraph, link. We got that nice light grey background. We got it responsive. And then the last thing to do is just the footer. So wow, we're coming up to an hour, and we're going to do a bit of flexbox now. So we've done some grid. We can do some flexbox, and we just go flex, display, flex, and then we're going to say items center, align items center, and we can do this a bit different. So justify center, and we're going to say justify content center, and you'll see why in a minute. Oh, actually, let's do exactly as we did it on the, so justify between, and you might recognize this from Figma and auto layout. They got spacing between, I think it was. So we are going to say justify content, and what was the value? Oh, forgot now. Justify content, and we want it to say spacing between, space between. Okay, the reason why I say Figma is because when you go to an auto layout, just to show you very quickly, you've got this space between. Okay, so it's very similar to Flexbox. And if we go back, so we've got those 3 values, and what we're going to do, we just go to our footer, we're going to say flex, and we're going to say justify between, and we can say items center. Save that, go back, straight away you can see it's done that nice layout. Now we need to have some padding between, so we can say px base, and we go in. Now we got the padding on the left and the right. Again, you go like this, it's responsive already, and we've practically done it, right? Obviously there's a lot of details to do. Okay, for example, if we go back to views, and just to show you a sneak peek of me, this was in the Philippines on holiday, and just to show you what you can do, right? You can have an avatar to make it a bit more personal, but for example, what we need to do is get the copyright symbol. Okay, so that is obviously hidden somewhere, but again, it's just a tiny detail, and we're going to get the 3 icons, and I think we're going to wrap it up, right? So if you haven't done this before, just try and remember now. The 3 icons was the social icons, and we actually didn't, I don't think we designed for that, but we do have them here. Okay, so we're using the feather icons. So all you have to do is just click and you go to export. We want to export it as an SVG. So we've got different icons then from what was shown in the videos. And you go to portfolio, and we just remove that and say Twitter. Here, again, you just go to export, say SVG, and we just say Instagram in the images folder. Oops, so I put that on the root folder. You go YouTube, and we go to export, we go to SVG, and then you go into images. We get rid of all of that. We go YouTube. Okay, if I go back to that folder, I want to put that in the images. Nice. So we go back. Now, the ways to do this, there's a lot of different ways of doing it. We are going to actually put the SVG straight in. So I'm going to go to Twitter. Just going to go Command A, go back into index, and I'm just going to paste it directly in. But delete, enter, enter, give it space, tab, and just paste that in. So that's Twitter. And we go to Instagram, we copy all of that, just delete, enter, enter, space, and then the last one is YouTube, copy all of that, and we just go to delete, space, space, enter, 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 and then paste. And then let's see if those are there. Great. Okay, nice. So the only thing left to do really is to put some spacing between them. And the way we can do that is, let's just have a quick look. Yeah, so you can see these little lines, and that's probably because we need to reset the link tag. Okay, so if I go to body, go to A, text decoration, and then enter, and then we say none. If we go back again, those lines should go, and I think we are pretty much there. Okay, and if you wanted to put spacing again, the way you can do it is we can say, we can go to our margins. So you say .ml for margin left, and we say base, so margin left, and that is going to be spacing base. And then we go back, and here we're just going to go to the A, and we say class ml base. And think of this approach to CSS like Lego utility classes. There's so many different approaches out there. There's BEM, there's just a ton of different ways. But this is one way that I think is pretty cool to know about. So if we go back to our preview, see again, we got the space there. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know we went way over time, but we have produced a very simple portfolio home page with CSS Grid and Flexbox. We touched on different technologies in CSS, but I think if you've done this, congrats. I know I might have went very quick, back and forth quite a lot. That might be a bit painful to view. So let me know what you think in the comments. Now the next level up, which is going to be the next video, is what happens if you then, if an interviewer sees your portfolio. Okay, so you really have to decide what you want to work on. You have to say your value proposition, a bit about yourself, and then the first 2 works is you're probably the ones you want them to see. They'll then click on this, for example, they'll go to a new page, and there you have to then break down the whys, the whats. You know, why did you do it? What is the problem? What is the solution? Who you're targeting? You can then even get into business objectives. This is where you start going over to the product thinking. So this is what is going to set you apart from other designers. So again, quite a lot of designers have very good visuals, and one thing that I'm trying to work on myself is the product thinking side. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and I'll see you in the next video.